Welcome to the first of our four webinars that we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks, looking at breaking down email marketing and how to get started, and then how to get good at it, and then how to completely cream it. My name is Kylie Davis. I'm recently joined ActivePipe. I'm a co-founder of HomePrezo, which was recently acquired by ActivePipe, and I'm also the founder of Real Content and the founder of the PropTech Association of Australia. So it's great to be here. My background is in media and marketing, and I had 25 years. I worked with Tom Panos at News Corp on the editorial side, and I come to marketing and I love the real estate industry. I'm really passionate about it. But what I know is that as an industry, we're moving from some really traditional skills in traditional marketing and how we've marketed ourselves to becoming digital agents. And I know that that can be quite scary sometimes. So what I wanted to do with these webinars is really break it down into the basic skills that you need, and then getting good at it and running small projects inside your team so that you can start to get a bit of rhythm and cadence in what you're doing. I love the ActivePipe product. I think it's a great way to start email marketing and become a complete ninja. And I love the fact too that you can do the journeys, and every click on any piece of content in your emails becomes an intent signal, which helps you capture leads. So let's get started. I've also got on the call Asif Khan from ActivePipe. He's going to be doing some demos at the end to illustrate how to do some of the skills that I'm going to step you through in the webinar. And if you've got any questions during the call, whack them up, not in the chat, but if you could whack them up into the Q&A section, that would be fantastic. So let's kick off. Now, I really like to start my prezos with some data, because I think it really helps if we can anchor ourselves into what the industry is doing and who we are, and it helps give us a bit of context for the problems that we're about to solve to. So if we think about it like this, there's 10 million dwellings in Australia according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and at the moment the average number that are being sold is around 4.5%. So on average, over the last 5 years, it's between about 420 to 500. I suspect this year it's going to be a lot under that, so we rounded that off to 4.5%. And most agents in their CRM have around 3,000 contacts. Now, you might have more, you might have less, it doesn't matter. This is just kind of a general number. But we use these numbers to kind of understand what's going on in our CRMs because of the power of statistics. And what we see is that there's about 135 leads in your CRM every year, that people who are who are going to be transacting if we play these numbers out. Now, if you've got more contacts in your CRM, that number is going to be higher, but 4.5% of 3,000 is around 135. Now, here's what else we know, that in the real estate industry right now, the Ash calls it lead leakage, and I really hate that term. So the issue of leaky leads, 45% of leads are traditionally lost each year. And in fact, on the buying side, every time you sell a property, you have the opportunity to delight to customers. You've sold the property of the seller, and they should be really happy with you. And the buyer too should be someone that you can put into your bank to have as a contact and a client further down the track. But what we know in real estate through the research that CoreLogic did a couple of years ago is that about 75% of buyers will actually probably not have anything to do with you after you've transacted to them. So we're throwing away all of these leads and then people who are in our database. Now, if you're losing about 45% of leads off that 135, that number that we looked at before in a typical CRM of 3,000, then there's 60 property listings that are being lost that you could be winning because they're in your database already every year. And if you're working on a median sales price of about $800,000, which is the Australian median at the moment, that's equivalent to 1.2 million. Now, these numbers will play out differently inside your offices, but I've given you just in that summary how to work it out. 4.5% of your leads in your CRM. What does that equal in terms of leads? What does that equal in terms of commission that you should be getting at right now? But here's why we need email marketing. As an industry, we've traditionally loved phoning people and cold calling by phone or knocking on someone's door. But these aren't working at the scale that we need them to anymore. Greg Brown at the Prop 20 conference recently gave us the number that only 27% of people these days actually want to use their mobile phone to take a phone call. When people see numbers that they don't know on their phone, they don't answer them. So if you're a real estate agent using phone as your primary method of contacting people and cold calling, then you're only really able to reach about a quarter of the population who are actually going to want to talk to you. If you tried to phone the 3,000 people in your contact database, according to Dale Carnegie, then it would take you about 60 days, because each call is going to take around about 8 minutes to have a meaningful conversation with them. This isn't just leaving a number and they're going to ignore you and not call you back. This is actually to have a conversation with you. So it's going to take 60 days, which is far too long. And they might not be ready to act in that 60 days. They might be ready to act later in the year. And here's what else we know from the data, that 62% of people, of past clients that you've worked with already, they expect to stay in contact with you, but are you staying in contact with them? So we also know that in email marketing, it's the most powerful thing that you can do in terms of marketing. It has the highest return on investment of any marketing option. And for every dollar you spend, you should be looking at getting about $42 back investment return. That's a figure from the Content Marketing Institute. So let's start to break this down. Now, the first step to getting started in email marketing is this one: clean up your data. Now, I know that this step pretty much makes most people feel exactly like this, that cleaning up your data seems in real estate to be a horror of an idea that is enormously huge, and where on earth do you even start? But I don't want you to panic, because we're going to break it down into two really straightforward steps. The first stage is really easy and instant. Work out in your database, do an export of everybody in your database who you have a name and an email address for. That's all you've got to do. And then work out how many contacts do we have that we don't have an email address for. We're going to break this into two projects so that it keeps it nice and straightforward. Now, for everybody who, once you've exported your list of people without an email address, the next step is this. Ask yourself, is there a reason why those contacts don't have an email address? Is it something that your team are doing to not collect them? Is it because the forms that you've got for them that to go out to open houses with, they're not collecting them? There's not a room for the email address in those forms? Is it because everyone's capturing stuff on their mobile and they don't want to share it with you? What do you need to do inside your business right now to encourage your agents to capture emails? Now, you don't have to solve this problem immediately. This is like a secondary product. We've already got our first list of contacts that have got the email address, and we're going to work with them in a minute. But this is kind of a project that we're going to start as part of getting started, or that you're going to need to start as part of getting started. And everything you do to add more emails into your database is going to be a win. So it's a great idea to, once you've got that list of contacts that don't have an email address, divide them up between your sales team and make that the next project that they do. That their reach outs need to be to these clients where they do have a mobile phone or they do have a contact name, and to get in touch with them and capture their email, say hello, how's it going? Are you worried about COVID? Is there some information we can provide you? Could I get your email address? And start to capture email addresses that way. Here's the thing about cleaning up your data though, is that when we talk about cleaning up data, we think we have to have it done and we have to have it done perfectly. You don't. You simply need to start. Cleaning up your database is a little bit like housework and even a little bit like sex. It never stays done. You have to keep doing it to get the benefit from it. Am I right? So, you need to just make a start, get stuck in, and push on from there. So I'm just going to check. We're going to probably take questions at the end. No, we haven't got any open questions, so that's all good. Let's start with step 2. We're going to segment our audience. So we're going to keep it really simple to start. Who's in our database and what's their interest in property right now? Now, they're not just in your database to make you happy. They're in your database already because they've had value from you in the past, or they think they're going to get value from you in the future. So we're going to take that list. Oh, hang on. Hey. We're going to take that list of emails of contacts who do already have emails, and we're going to eyeball them. We're going to look at them in the list, and we're going to get a feel for who's in there. Like what do they, how do they, what's the sniff test? What do they feel like? And there's probably going to be some that fall into these following very basic categories. You're going to have some buyers. You're going to have people who are buying right now who are wanting to ask you, do you know any properties where I can get a complete amazing deal during COVID? You know, you're going to have buyers like that in there, but just people looking to buy right now. You're definitely going to have sellers in there. You're going to have investors, renters, and all of these people are going to fall into two categories as part of those four categories. They're either going to be currently in the market right now, or they're going to be people that you've dealt with in the past. So if you can do a segmentation, if you can work out of those people, what major category they fall into mostly, and then you can identify whether they're in that category now, or they've been in, or that's the past category, then that is a major piece, that's a major step forward in cleaning up your database and starting to get some useful data that you can use. And Naseeb's going to show you at the end of the webinar how we can help at ActivePipe to automate some of this to work out, to encourage people already in your database to start to segment themselves. But then after you've done that basic segmentation as a kind of stage 2 and you've got comfortable with that, you should start to eyeball those people again and ask yourself, how soon is it that they're likely to act? Are they ready to act now? Is it going to be in 3 months? Is it 6 months? Is it 12 months? Segmentation, when we talk about it in marketing terms, it can get really complicated. People start to talk about demographics and are they women? Are they, you know, don't worry about that as much as getting them into these key categories around how they're thinking about real estate and what their next action is likely to be in their real estate journey. This is a really powerful segmentation that you can do. And the third step, and we are flying through this, so it's going to, that's great. We have lots of time for questions, and Asif will be able to give a great demo. The third step is to determine your email frequency. Now, the trick to this is to think like your audience. And if you need help how to do that, think about all of the things that you've ever bought online and then ended up signing up to accidentally, or as part of the purchase, you've ended up being on someone's email list. And think about, do I get value out of being on that email list, or do they just spam me and annoy me to death? Because it's if they're spamming you and annoying you to death, it's because they haven't got the frequency and the cadence right for how often you're prepared to use them. So the trick to this is to determine email frequency is to think like your audience and think, if I'm a seller wanting to who is considering selling in the next 6 months, do I really want to hear from my real estate agent every week? Probably not. I'd probably prefer to hear from them maybe once a month or once a fortnight, because at the moment in COVID, because things are really crazy. If I'm a buyer, do I want to hear from them every week? Yes, but I'd also like to hear from them more frequently, maybe when new properties, immediately when they come up onto the market. So how often does it make sense for you to contact each of those audiences? And so if you can work out, based on those audiences and that segmentation you did, how frequently ideally you want to contact them, that's the next step. So different audiences do want different timings. And look, a content calendar can be a great way to help you kind of visualize when you're going to be sending stuff. And what we've done at Homepresso, we built a quick blank content calendar, which is literally just an Excel spreadsheet. It's not terribly fancy, but it looks a little bit like this. And we give you 7 days of the week and 4 weeks of each month, so that you can start to put on a plan when you want to see, when you think you will be emailing people, and then you can also start to incorporate social media activity onto it as well. So we'll share out the links to this deck and this presentation afterwards, and we'll also send out a link to that content calendar if that helps. But here's some ideas. Current buyers, they're probably going to want to hear from you weekly, possibly a little bit more frequently. Landlords, if you contacted them quarterly and told them about what the market is doing, they would be grateful and amazed. Your general database, when you're getting started, it does make sense that you're probably going to want to send one email to kick off and start to get into the habit of doing it. So probably monthly is enough for that. And sellers are part of that database too. So monthly to start, and then as you get more comfortable doing it, as you get more sophisticated in your targeting and your segmenting gets better, and you've got the ActivePipe automations working and feeding more into the back end, you'll start to be able to do that a little bit more frequently. But here's the other thing to do. Don't try and boil the ocean with this. You've already done a lot by outputting your list of contacts. You've got your sales team cleaning up the contacts in the back end. That's going to take a couple of weeks. You're starting to set up your automations. You've got your audience segmentation happening. Try and add one email at least, one new email every week across your month until you get to the point where you've got your month's worth of email activity organized. But don't try and do everything perfectly right from the start. Try and break it into small projects and do one thing at a time, get comfortable with that, and then do the next thing to build up what you're doing. Now, some design, the last step is to design your campaign templates. And this again talks to the content conversation, which we'll go into next week in our next seminar. But I really want to emphasize one size does not fit all. Your campaign templates need to reflect what your audience wants to hear in the time frame that they want to hear it in. So what kind of content will engage them? And what should that look like? Well, it should definitely look like it comes from you, and it should look beautiful, and it should be on brand. And it should emphasize as part of its delivery the kind of information that people are hoping to learn from you because you're their agent. So follow your brand guidelines and make all of the templates really attractive. Create different templates for different audiences. So your buyer template is going to look really different to your seller template. Your seller template is going to look really different to your landlord template. The kind of information that you share with them and the volume of property listings that you share with them is probably going to be very different. Buyers are going to want to see as much as is relevant to their selection criteria as possible. Sellers, not so much, but they'd probably be really interested in seeing some recent sales and to know the price of those recent sales as part of that information. And do consider video and interactive content that will really help capture intent, because as Steve is going to show you, every click that any person makes on any email that you do is a signal of intent that the ActivePipe AI captures in the background and starts to get smarter and smarter on your behalf. So how ActivePipe is going to help you through this process. So Steve's going to talk about some more of the specific actions that you can do as part of this. But as an ActivePipe customer, all of you have a success manager for every office. And if you don't know who that is, drop us a line and a quick email and we'll hook you up. We also have a support team on call, and we can do irregular account reviews with you if you've had an account that's been operating for a while, but you feel like you need a bit of a refresher, or you need a bit of a help to get stuck in again. So finally, what do you do finally? This is a bonus step 5. Basically just rinse and repeat. Like just keep getting email addresses into your database, keep segmenting them into their basic audiences. Recognize that people's audience preferences are probably going to change. Like buyers are not going to be buyers forever, and make sure that you're sending them content that is relevant and interesting at the time frame and cadence that they want to receive it. And the better that you get, the smarter the AI gets, and then the better quality leads that start to get captured. So here's a quick overview of what that should look like once you've got it all in play. It should be like a really funky kind of eternity ring of new clients becoming past clients, becoming new clients again, and it will give you a great baseline which you can then start to build social media on top of as well. So with that, I'm going to hand over now to Asif. Now, Asif, I'm going to have a slight driving issue. If I stop my share, will you be able to take over?
For sure. Thank you very much, Kelly, for the great presentation. I'm pretty sure the audience got a lot out of it. It's conscious of time. We'll quickly pull up the ActivePipe dashboard, and we'll dive into it straight away.
And if anyone has any questions, please pop them into the Q&A.
Excellent. So ladies and gentlemen, what I'll be doing for this session is we'll be creating an audience in ActivePipe, and we'll create a very targeted campaign around that audience as well. And for an example, the audience that we would be creating is an audience of potential sellers. So what I'll do is I'm logged in as Agent Bob here. I will quickly jump onto the dark panel on the left and click on the Audiences tab over here. So as we can see, we've got a green cool button at the corner, Create Audience. So clicking on it takes us to the audience building window, where we can begin by first selecting some fields. First one we would want to select would be the first name, and that needs to have a value. The second would be the email address, which of course needs to be there for us to start our communication. Third would be the status, has to be subscribed. Last but not the least, in order to run a very targeted campaign, we'll add tags as one of the fields in it. Now with the tags, ActivePipe has got the capability of targeting any of the tags available in your database, whichever database that you're using, as well as any of the intent identified in ActivePipe, starting from the downsizer, first-time buyer, potential seller, upsizer, would all be available here under this field. So I'll just select potential seller because we're trying to create an audience around the potential sellers. And once I have selected it, I'll just apply filters to it. Now for Bob, we've got a handful of 16 contacts to be precise as potential sellers. I'm pretty sure you'll have a lot more than that in your database. So once I've added all our filters, I'll quickly save this audience. I'll just name it as potential sellers for reference to be targeted in the advanced campaign builder. And once I've created the audience, I'll quickly jump onto the emails that I have set it up for the potential sellers. Let's quickly take a look at that. Now, this is the email that we have set it up for the potential sellers with an introduction, the subject line automatically fetching these potential sellers, first name onto it, some smart read available on the canvas that's from the ActivePipe library under smart read here, some recently sold properties highlighted down below, as well as a call to action button for requesting a free appraisal. Sounds pretty cool. Now, once we have set it up the email, we're happy with it. I'll quickly jump onto the campaigns here in order to set up our campaign live. We'll begin by clicking on, again, the green cool button, create campaign. Just name it as potential sellers for internal reference. Now, we would want to target the audience that we just created. Clicking on browse takes us to the advanced tag and audience window where we can identify the potential sellers audience that we just created. Clicking on it, clicking apply, allows us to have the 16 contacts that Bob has in his database. Next thing we would want to do is click on schedule. Need to select a date and time, of course. Just give it a random date, say 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning on, say, Thursday. If I click on repeat the schedule, we can repeat it weekly, fortnightly, monthly, at any level you want to be sending this communication out to your audience. I'll just leave it as, say, every fortnight. So once the audience, the date and time has been selected, the next thing we would want to do is jump onto action where we get to select the email that we have created for our potential sellers. Clicking on the drop down here allows us to pick the email that we have just created. Again, we can edit any of the contact in case we come up with any last minute changes just by clicking on edit here. But that's your entire campaign. Set it up, targeting the audience that we just created, applying a date and time to it, and also the email that we have for the potential sellers. A good practice for a campaign of this sort to be, if you want to update any of the content in there, set yourself a reminder maybe just before or the week before this campaign is about to go live, and you can just update the content in there. But I'll just have it as save and activate, and in that fashion this campaign would be up and running, targeting all of the potential sellers Bob has got in his database. So I'll just leave the floor open for some questions to be answered. Conscious of time, we wouldn't be able to take all of the questions, but we would be getting back to you offline to as many as possible. And yeah, let's just dive onto the question and answers here, the Q&A section here. Cool. Callie, if you have identified any of the questions yet.
So look, we do have one question from Samantha, who has asked, how do you categorize your contacts for weekly, monthly, buyers and sellers, etc., when you've got about 4,000 contacts? Now, I think, Asif, you've just demonstrated that because, Sam, I guess the thing is to not try and worry about trying to do it all in one hit of going through everybody line by line. Because you're going to identify your contacts as either a buyer, a seller, a renter, or an investor. And then basically once you've built the emails, that's when you identify whether that tag gets an email monthly, weekly, inside the system. So you don't have to think, oh, that person needs this once a week. You just have to put a tag onto the contact, and then you basically set the email up inside ActivePipe to deliver to that contact. And the way that I would do it, it depends what database you're in, but when in doubt, export it to an Excel sheet and go through names and like BSRI and type them in that way and turn them into tags so that you can then upload them quickly to ActivePipe. Would that work, Asif? Am I making stuff up?
No, absolutely spot on, Callie. So any of the tags created in the database, we would be able to target those tags as we have just seen during a demonstration here. So once you add a tag to your audience in the database, ActivePipe would be able to identify that tag in the campaign builder. Also, you do have the capability of adding more tags in ActivePipe as well, but we wouldn't want to have too many tags lying in your database because you end up starting to lose your track of it easily. So Elena over here asked a question around tags. So yes, the answer to your question, Elena. So if you come up with some tags in Rex, as you mentioned, that you're using, we should be able to identify those tags using ActivePipe here. Another question that I identified over here was, where can we get templates from for our emails? So the templates would be set it up. Some of the templates would be set it up by default in your account, Callie. And if you feel that you need to, come up with more templates as well, we're more than happy to understand your requirements on the design and specifications, and we can pass on your requirements to the wonderful design team in ActivePipe, and surely we can help you with that.
And Trudy, I think that's probably the answer to your question as well. So if you email support at ActivePipe, they'll give you a hand setting up your listing emails as well. There's one really good, what we might do is answer these questions and send them out as part of the, how are we going for time? I've got so many tabs open, I can't see my clock.
We just have got 1 minute left for our session, but along with the webinar recording, we will be sending out all of the answers to your questions, team. And yes, and if you've got my details handy as well, more than happy to take any questions offline.
Cool. And there's just one last question that I think Neil Walker has asked, which is a great one to finish up on. Audience versus tags. What is the advantage of creating an audience as opposed to just adding a tag to them? And I think, yeah, do you want to take that, Asif?
Yeah, sure. So with the tags, we try to split the two categories between tags and audiences. With tags, we would be identifying any of the tags placed in your database and would be fetching it to ActivePipe. With the audience, we would be keeping the audience handy for ActivePipe to come up with in the form of any intent, whether it's an upsizer, downsizer, potential seller. And you also have got this advantage of creating more audiences, like we just took a look at during the demonstration, that we can create a different audience in the form of a potential seller as well, if that gives the answer to the question.
Yeah. So I guess the way to think of that, Neil, is that you've got a name in your database. It's a person that you've met, and you're probably going to have a couple of different tags for them. They might be a past client, and they might have, and they might also be an investor. But when it comes to an audience, you're thinking about, well, if I'm about to do an email that's talking about the best ways to, key strategies to invest in the local area, I basically want to pull my audience for this email. The people I want to read it are anyone who I think is going to be interested in an investment property right now. So I'm going to pull the tags that make sense. So your audience actually might be made up of a couple of different tags from your database. Would that be right? Steve? He's nodding.
Sure.
Good.
For sure.
Cool. I'm still new. I'm still learning as well. I think we're going to probably have to wrap it up there. It has been an absolute rapid fire half hour. Thank you everyone so much for your attention. We are going to send out a copy of the recording, and also a copy of the deck, and a copy of the question and some of the key questions that have been asked with the answers to them in the next couple of days. And we'll send a link through to the content calendar. And if you and the ability, a reminder of how to reach out if you need some help getting your account set up. So thank you everybody so much for your time. It's been great to have you. On behalf of Asif Khan and Kylie Davis and the ActivePipe team, thanks for coming along. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.